couple of weeks ago I posted the film of my BikeSafe workshop with Northants police. It's been well received by all concerned and was a great way to spend an autumn day in the presence of biking royalty. I hope it's nudged a few of you to sign up. I was then asked by BikeSafe to write a short article to describe the day, and there's a link below if you'd like to read that. Any training should challenge you. It should make you think about what you're doing and how you can sharpen your skills. You've got to ask yourself, if police bikers take the time and effort to work on their riding, then how much more should we? Many years ago, a friend of mine at a golf tournament asked Tom Kite, the American golfer, the secret of his success on the Pro Tour. He said, "The more I practice, the luckier I get." It's a well-known phrase, isn't it? Those who've followed this channel over the last couple of years will know that I set myself the challenge of riding like a Class 1 police biker. I know I'll never get there, but I'll still keep striving for it. Unlike Kite, I don't believe in luck, but I do believe in being the best rider I can be. And I owe it to my family to make sure I get home safe. That means every ride must focus on improvement. I rode down this stretch of the A44 2 years ago on my RT. I doubt there's a better set of twists anywhere in the country. It's a real technical challenge. This time I'm on the Monster R, which is quite simply the most exquisitely engineered piece of kit I've ever owned. So our skills are half the story, but they need to be matched perfectly to the machine we ride. The same principle is true for the police. The skills are only part of their capability. And after the BikeSafe workshop finished, PC Chris Tall was kind enough to take a few minutes to show me the fleet of bikes that Northants Special Operations team take out on the roads. So get ready for a no-holds-barred insight into the bikes they ride and the gadgetry they carry. Okay, so Chris, here we are stood outside the HQ with a few of your bikes. So what are we looking at here?
So this is the latest addition to our fleet, the BMW R1250RS. You can see it's unmarked, but we've fitted with blue lights. And we use it in pretty much the same way as we do the marked bikes, but there's the obvious advantages that it is unmarked. It gives us sometimes an operational advantage if we're trying to play it a bit more low key.
And how is this different then from, say, a bike you can buy from any BMW?
Well, it's
showroom?
not. So we bought it it was a BMW demonstrator. So we bought it as a bog standard bike, and then we send it away to a company that we use that turns it into a police bike, basically. Okay. So looking closer at it, so I think just from looking at it from the side, it just looks like a normal bike. I think you'd agree. There's nothing that makes it stand out.
Absolutely.
But when you get a little bit closer, we've got some radio equipment that lives in the top box. So it's just some wires and some bits and bobs in there just to make the radio work. We've had the sat-nav fitted, and basically it's fitted with blue lights, which if you stand around the front now you'll see. And then under the front there's the white and blue lights that fit under the fairing.
Yep.
For merging into junctions, we've got the repeater lights on the side that just give us a bit of an advantage when pulling out into traffic. Combination of red and blue lights.
Interesting.
Fit with the siren, needs the engine running for the siren. Oh, messed up.
Got to get one of those on mine. And what's this gadget?
So that's the control unit for the radio in the back. So with that we can turn the volume up and down.
Yeah.
And change the radio torque group. So we've
Okay.
got the list of different torque groups that we use. So if we're moving between areas within the force, they use different radio torque groups.
Yeah.
So sometimes we need to just change the channel so we can talk to the control room locally where we are.
So is the speedo on this bike calibrated?
No, not on this one at the moment. So we will get it calibrated, and basically that's done by comparing the speedometer that's fitted to it. So back in the day with a conventional speedometer, we'd send the speedo head away, it would be checked and it would come back as accurate with a sticker on it.
Make a move.
No worries. Okay, cheers.
Cheers, mate. Nice to meet you. What we do now is to compare the speedometer that's fitted to the machine against a calibrated vehicle. It then compares a chart. So we'd come away with this saying, well, actually, when it reads 57 on there, it's actually doing 55. So that we know then we've got evidence that the accuracy of the speedometer.
So we've come a long way from the days of the measured mile then, back in the 1980s.
Well, they still exist. They're still marked on the side of the road. You still see the squares. We've still got the calibrated stopwatches that we can use to double check the calibration. Yeah, it all still exists. But technology has moved on a little bit, yeah.
Sure. So what about then comparing this sort of plain bike with one of your marked bikes then? Is there a difference in the level of equipment here then, Chris?
Not a great deal, to be fair. The obvious
obviously the high vis.
Is the high vis. So we'd use this in exactly the same way as we do the cars. So the reason they're high vis is makes it safer for us to be seen when we're responding or just patrolling. High vis bit of patrols, but there's enough reflective material on there to make it safe to protect the scene. So if we were to come across a collision or a broken down vehicle or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And likewise, give you a demonstration of the lights. Okay, keep in this one.
So this pylon on the back then, is that extendable?
So that's extendable, that will go up. We generally leave them down most of the time.
No worries.
It will go up. There we go. So not a great deal, it goes up to there, just makes it a bit more visible.
Yep.
We kind of use that more if for escort duties, if we're escorting abnormal load. I wouldn't go that too far now. There we go. So it just gives it a little bit more visibility. So it doesn't matter which way that's facing, you can pretty much get the angle of the, so that they're blues in that. Just give you an idea what they look like. So on the back, just the blues in the extender.
So even in reasonably bright sunlight, it stands out well, doesn't it?
So the aerial on this one, so there is an aerial within the back box of the unmarked bike, but obviously it just removes a bit of that covertness, if you like, for want of a better word, if you've got a big aerial sticking up, but that's obviously not an issue with the marked bikes.
Sure.
So we just go with the conventional aerial. Radio equipment on these is in the pod on the back. So we buy these as anybody else will when they buy an FJR1300. They come from Yamaha and they go directly to the company that turns them into police bikes for us. So they take the back seat off and they put this pod on in return as a replacement. They put an extra battery in it, so all the auxiliaries have got a spare battery to keep the bike running.
Yep.
With the LEDs now, it used to be that if we were leaving the bike running with the lights running, we'd need to leave the engine running, so we had a run lock so we could take the keys out.
And what about the display there? Because the dash panel here looks rather different to
this one here.
Yeah.
So yeah, this on it is a different one, because obviously if you'd put that on the unmarked bike, it kind of stands out as a police bike a little bit more. But quite simple. So at a glance, 999. Basically, if you're responding to an emergency, you just push 999. That gives you all the lights onto the front and arms the siren, which is then activated by pushing the horn, and then 2 blasts to turn it off. The same control panel there for the radio. Exactly the same radio system on this one as there is in the unmarked bike. Similar operating sat nav.
Yeah, standard GPS, isn't it? Yeah.
And then, in addition, so you spoke about calibrated speedometer. The marked bikes are fitted with them. So that's something that comes from Yamaha to be fitted on the bike when it's equipped as a police bike. So it's
So I'm out riding on a B road and I'm doing happily sort of 85 miles an hour down the B road.
Yep.
What does that do then?
So what you can do is we can just reset it for you. So that's in speed mode at the moment, which just gives us a speedometer and a trip.
That's your speed?
So that's the speed of this bike. Yeah, that's all it records. There's nothing more fancy to it than that. It's just done on a follow. We would then push so if we're behind a speeding motorist that perhaps we wanted to gauge their speed, we'd just push the red button. It goes into what it calls pursuit mode, for want of a better phrase. What it does then, it records the speed more accurately down to 1/10 of a mile, and down to 1/10 of a mile an hour, I should say, and the distance. So we'd follow it for a period of time, would then push the button again, it'd come up pursuit off, and then it would give you the average speed over whatever distance. So it would say whatever 85.3 over a distance of 0.4 of a mile.
What about video then? Are you videoing on bikes?
No video on these at the moment. That's not to say that we wouldn't.
No.
It's just that the bikes don't have videos at the moment, and there is a bit of an appetite to maybe put one on the unmarked bike.
Because I noticed a lot of officers now where the...
So we all carry body-worn video.
Yeah.
The footage on that isn't excellent on the bike. It picks up a lot of wind noise, and of course it moves around on your coat. But we do carry those all the time, and
Sure.
it does capture some good footage for us. But yeah, I would like one on the unmarked bike. It's not so much around the speed as it's catching bad driving, it's catching evidence of pursuits.
Well, there's no debate then, is there?
And it's there, you can't argue with that if you end up in court. And quite often we find that if there is video evidence, it stops things going to court in the first place because it's all there for everybody to see.
Sure.
So it does encourage a lot of guilty pleas, and that's the same with the body-worn video as well.
Yep. So it obviously saves your time and keeps the bad guys off the roads.
Yeah, well, that's the plan.
Yeah. So what would you carry in your panniers then typically?
So in with the radio, we've got, so there's the radio, and we've got basically a basic trauma first aid kit. So
you're first on scene and you can do something about it.
We've got a cat tourniquet for life-threatening bleeding.
Yep.
So tourniquet in there, and some conventional bandages, and some of the trying to show that you can't really see what it is. They call it blast bandage in that one, but that basically goes into an open wound to stop bleeding.
Sure.
We don't deal with. We haven't got a first aid kit for minor sort of cuts, bruises, things like that.
Yep.
Just life-saving trauma.
It's just to buy that 5-10 minutes before the ambulance arrives.
Life-saving.
Yep.
So first on scene, whatever that may look like. In there, nice bit of kit we've got now that plugs into our phones. If somebody at the side of the road gives us a name that we don't believe, we think they're giving us false details and we're investigating them for an offence, we plug that into our phone. You put your finger on there, and within seconds it tells us who you really are, assuming we've got your fingerprint
Interesting.
on record. So that's a handy bit of kit for us. Now the rest of the stuff in the panniers is personal kit. So
Sure.
laptop, maybe a spare pair of gloves to keep your hands warm if they get wet, and just the general paperwork for us to do our day-to-day job.
Excellent. Thank you. Fascinating. Yeah, because I'm sure many bikers like myself, we obviously see the marked bikes around, and we often wonder what's going on. So.
So it goes into our ears, so it doubles up as earplugs as well to keep road noise out, and we get the car alarm. Really doesn't like motorbikes, so then we just plug into the bike. Once we're plugged into the bike, we've got to push the torque, so we don't have to take our hands off the handlebars to transmit. We just push the button to transmit.
Is that how you've been talking today then on BikeSafe? Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
talking amongst ourselves while we've been riding around.
Yep.
Other than that, it is pretty much things to make them go faster. We keep them completely standard.
And do you have any preference FJR? Because I know some forces ride the RTs, don't they?
We were lucky we had the choice. So when our last fleet, which was the previous model FJRs, came up for replacement, we were given the choice. The Chief Constable said, I want you guys using machines that you're comfortable, confident with. So get them as demonstrators, try them, and let me know, and have the ones that serve you best. There's not a great deal of choice. Police motorbikes for road policing use need to be over 1000 cc with shaft drive. It kind of narrows the options down quite a bit.
Do they ride a slightly smaller BMW?
Yeah, so they've got for different roles.
Yeah.
So they've got teams that use the GS 800, I think it is.
Yeah.
BMW, which is for a different purpose. It's not
You see them rolled out at sort of, I don't know, royal weddings and things like that.
So the royalty protection they're using that. Not royalty protection. The special escort group are using the RS.
Yeah. Okay.
So they were always BMWs in the past. Then they went to Honda VFR1200s for a while.
Yeah.
And they've gone back to BMWs now, and they're riding those.
Interesting.
So powerful machine, but in quite a small, agile bike.
Yeah. Brilliant. So what gets you guys out of bed in the morning? Then what's the?
I suppose if you're lucky enough to combine your hobby and your interest with your work, it doesn't get a lot better than that, does it? And that's probably where we're at. So we do pretty much the same as we would. There are obviously limitations to what we can get involved in on the bikes, but it also gives us that little bit of more flexibility around where the bikes can go that cars can't. So if we get people that want to try and evade us by going down footpaths and narrow roads and and things like that. It just gives us that little bit more flexibility. It allows us to get through busy traffic a lot more, filtering through the traffic if we're trying to make progress or catch up with a car that we've got an interest in and we want to speak to, then it just makes it a little bit easier to cut through the traffic.
Sure. Well, BikeSafe's been a great day, Chris, so on behalf of me and my subbies on YouTube, Back to the Bike, just like to thank you publicly and look forward to the next one.
You're very welcome. Thanks for doing.